Out of all the games to be a massive disappointment, the remaster and re-release of 007 GoldenEye was not one of those games I thought was even possible of disappointing us because it already leaked. We have a version that has leaked already, and I'll get to that a little bit later, but that kind of set a precedent like, hey, this is a taste of what's to come. Check this out. It looks great. It runs amazing. And that was just a beta. That was just a test. Back in 2007, they were making it. And it looked and played amazingly. It was everything I wanted out of the game. And I couldn't wait to see how they'd improved it during all this time. And I didn't even know that they had changed who was developing it. For some reason, even though Microsoft owns Rare, they don't have that version for some reason. Okay, we'll get back to that. But this specific release for the Xbox, and I'm not really going to talk about the Switch a whole lot. The only real bad thing that I've seen about the Switch version is that they didn't really upscale it as much as they could have. They didn't implement 60 frames per second, even though plenty of people have done that with emulators already. Xbox doesn't have 60 frames per second either. Again, even though it's already been done. It always baffles me whenever a small group of people are able to do a better job on a project than a multi-billion-dollar company, or even just a company in general that is going to make money off of the product. Switch version, it's got online, it was made by a different group of people, and from what I've heard, pretty much everything about that game is great, except for the controls. And that's because a lot of people are not used to those old control schemes. But I've also seen that people are able to remap their controls to better controls, but they're still not as good as the Xbox, because the Xbox version, which is what I'm going to mainly talk about, they did a great job with the controls. They nailed it. They made it easy to go back and forth between weapons. They made it easy to aim. You use both sticks. It doesn't feel like it was originally on the Nintendo 64. Now, as I was playing the game, I kept hitting the guide button as the start button because my brain was telling me that I was playing an N64 game, so the big button in the middle of the controller is the start button. No. I just wanted to share that little thing that kept happening to me. Overall, the controls feel great. The gameplay itself feels pretty damn good when the frame rate isn't dying, because it has this weird inconsistent frame rate where it kind of slows down randomly too. It's not even just during firefights or big explosions. It just randomly happens in the middle of gameplay. It'll slow down your frame rate and then it'll try to catch back up, so it'll speed up. I don't like the feeling. Another feeling I don't like is the fact that it feels like I'm playing some sort of psychological horror game, because all of the textures are moving, so it feels like the world is kind of breathing, and I hate that. And along with the textures breathing and constantly moving because of their shift to 4K and their poor implementation of it, there are these huge jagged lines through the game, and they are constant. Some levels are worse than others, but Surface, the starting level, a lot of different levels just, oh my god, you really notice it because you're just out in these bigger areas, and with the bigger areas become bigger jagged lines that are really noticeable, and they're just awful looking. I've seen some people online saying that the first level had them just quit the game because they knew it wasn't going to be a solid experience. And I don't blame them, because it's so sad that this is the product we got. This is the game that we got when there have been so many other iterations that have already existed online that are better than this, and they were free. Also, why is there not an online mode for the Xbox version when there is for the Nintendo version? Why were there two separate teams working on this? Why couldn't it have been one team working on the game, making the best product possible, instead of two separate teams making the same game or remastering the same game, but in a different way? That is so strange to me. And I also don't understand why is there no online multiplayer for the supposedly remastered and enhanced version, but the basic N64 version that the Nintendo Switch people got has multiplayer? I don't understand how that happened. I also don't get how some of the textures are having even more bugs than the original. Explosions, you'll see trees behind the explosion and the ground disappear, or you'll just see things phase through walls, you'll see things through walls. There are so many bugs in this game. It makes sense why they didn't just release it as soon as they announced that they were even coming out with it, because they still had a lot more to do to fix the game, and they still do, in my opinion. There's still a lot wrong with this game. It needs to be fixed. Even achievements are not popping up when you get them. You're still getting them, you just don't have the little notification. They missed that part of the game somehow. What also kind of blows my mind is the fact that Microsoft and Rare couldn't figure out how to get this game to people who own the physical copy of the Rare Replay collection. Why is it only the people that own it digitally getting this? Why can't you just update people that own the disc version? That doesn't make any sense. There have been plenty of other games, in fact most games, where you are adding new content to disc-owning individuals. That's what DLC is. That's what updates are. It seems kind of scummy. It is nice that it is a part of Game Pass. It is nice that it is part of the Rare Replay Digital, but it's just another addition to the weird choices they made with this game. And I'm hating a lot of the conversation around this game. A lot of people are just defending it for absolutely no reason, going, oh, it's an old game, what did you expect? And then there's the other people that are like, oh, I don't know why they even re-released this game. It's complete trash. It's like both sides of the argument are kind of invalid, because these people over here don't understand that we've seen better remasters. They seem to have forgotten the Xbox Live Arcade leak, which this is what it looked like, by the way. I keep talking about it. Look at how much better this game looks. This is what it could have looked like. This is why it was worth remastering, because you could bring it to a more modern platform with more modern graphics. Yeah, not amazing graphics, but it still looks so good. And for people like me, which is the target audience for this game, for this remaster, it's phenomenal. It's giving the game a breath of fresh air, and it's what the Master Chief Collection was supposed to be at launch. You're able to switch between the old graphics and the new graphics. You can see all the different changes they made. You can look back at the old game if you really want to and play through it that way. You can play through it the new way if you want to. The fact that they did all that meant so much to me as a fan of this game. And it showed that they really put care and attention into it, and that they really did care about the thing that they made back in the past. They cared about 007 GoldenEye. It was a huge game for Rare, so it makes sense that they put all of that time and effort into that Xbox Live Arcade game that was never released. Microsoft owns Rare. I have to come back to this. Microsoft owns Rare. Why don't we have this? Why don't we have this build? I have this build. Did they lose the code somehow? I don't understand why this is the product we got and why we didn't get that product. Why didn't we get that game? Because can you imagine if 15 years ago they made this and they instead took all of that time in between, maybe they wouldn't devote a ton of time, but just occasionally coming back to that original build that they did that already plays amazingly, doesn't have any frame rate issues, by the way, also doesn't have any texture issues, doesn't have those weird lines, it doesn't have any of the same issues that this one does. There's a couple texture issues, but they're not nearly as noticeable, and they're not nearly as bad. And it's only when you have the new graphics on, and again, this was in beta, so of course there was going to be issues. And it makes sense why there are issues, because the game wasn't done yet. What we just got was supposedly a finished product because they've released it, and they're not saying that this is early access to an N64 game that they barely updated. They're saying that this is the full release product. This is what we've been testing. This is what we made. Here's the remaster. And you're like, this is not good. This is very, very poor effort. This is a bad emulator baked into the game and a very bad 4K re-rendering of the textures. Go back and do it again. That's what they needed to do. And instead, they just decided to launch it anyway. But imagine that old, rare Xbox Live Arcade game with multiplayer, with all these enhancements, and what the finished product would have looked like. Because again, we have the beta. It runs amazingly. So what would the finished product have been like? And I think it would have been what people like me, GoldenEye fans, that have been playing this game since they were a child and still playing this game to this day. Like, I still play GoldenEye every couple of years, and that's who this target audience was, and that's who would have been incredibly excited if that Xbox Live Arcade game had launched the way it had been planned to back in 2007. So it's just depressing to me that this is what we got when technology has moved on so much farther in 15 years. They could have made this 60 frames per second. They could have made this, I don't even care about 4K. I don't care. Make it 1080. Just clean it up. Make it look better. We've seen it done. Just hire the people that have already done it if you have to. I don't care. Hire competent people to remaster a huge part of people's childhood and a massive video game gem for so many people that owned a Nintendo 64. And instead, they just dropped the ball. They wasted the potential. I'm still going to beat it, but I don't think I'll ever touch this version of the game again because, again, there's no online multiplayer, so why would I? And especially because the single-player gameplay experience is simply worse than what I can play on my computer with the Xbox Live Arcade leak. That is the definitive edition of this game, in my opinion. And that's the edition I'll continue playing over the years. But they did such a good job with the controls. They really did. I have to give them credit where credit is due. And they did a great job with the controls. But I mean, that's it? Like, that's all you guys could do? Just the controls? It's sad. Well, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Of course, please do like the video if you guys liked it. Subscribe for more content. And as always, have a fantastic day. See you, everybody.